I'm not going to do what everyone thinks I'm going to do and freak out. What I am going to do is what you expect me to do and cover the uncomfortable truths, even if nobody else wants to.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things cowboy and cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at AllDayOState. Today, we're partially brought to you by GameTime Tickets. Download the GameTime app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Make sure you download the GameTime app today. Meanwhile, we shift right into the conversation of Utah versus Oklahoma State. And I purposely waited to do this because I wanted to make sure that my response to this game wasn't entirely predicated upon emotions alone. First of all, I want to say congratulations, Utah. You are not who I thought you were. You have caught a lot of grief for the transition from the Pac-12 to the Big 12, and the Big 12 being significantly more physical, and that appears to not be the case. Either that or Utah is just much, much, much more physically prepared than we are. From an offensive line perspective, we needed a lot out of this unit. We needed a lot out of this group. Unfortunately, that did not happen. We did not get that. But furthermore, as it pertains to Utah, the best team won that ball game. The best team in the Big 12 was able to show itself on Saturday, even with a true freshman backup quarterback. I personally was slightly afraid of the idea of Isaac Wilson being more mobile than Cam Rising, but it is what it is. He played fairly admirably. From a statistical perspective, he did well. The running back, Mekhi Bernard, did well. Dorian Singer, the transfer USC wide receiver, also did well. I would argue, though, that for a little bit of a caveat, is our defense was on the field for 42 minutes, something like 80 snaps. That's going to be difficult for anybody to have a ridiculous stat line. So overall, it did equal some good grades and some good MVP level dudes. The MVPs have to be Trey Rucker. On the defensive side of the ball, he was an absolute animal all over the place. So he once again proved that it's not an illusion. It's not that he's putting up these crazy tackles because there's nobody else on the team other than Nick Martin that can get the tackles. It's that he's able to not only take the right pursuit angles, but he's doing very well in coverage. He's improved his speed, which is allowing him not to get burnt so much deep. And you're seeing that on the field. If there's going to be an offensive MVP, I think it would be difficult to give it to anybody other than Brennan Presley or Talon Shetron. Can we all just safely say that Talon Shetron is right now a more complete wide receiver than Rashad Owens? Talon Shetron has the ability to run after the catch and take the top off the defense. Rashad Owens is a quintessential tried and true possessions receiver. And to be a possession receiver, you have to snag the ball virtually every time it's thrown to you. So drops by a possession receiver are going to be a little bit more magnified than drops by somebody who can get a lot of yards after contact and make people miss and get up the field. But on top of the performance by Trey Rucker, Nick Martin, you get an A. Parker Robertson, you get an A, not only for what he was able to do on special teams, but when he came in and filled in, especially in the fourth quarter, he played admirably. And guys, whenever I thought of this Utah game, one of the benefits to having 11 hours to drive is you do get to kind of comb through the memory banks and put some things in perspective. When it comes to just the gut-wrenching, heartbreaking feelings, there's a lot of games that come to mind, like the 2011 loss to Iowa State, not only because of the game, but also because of the plane crash. 1997 double overtime Mizzou, one of the many times we got to see R.W. McQuarters throw on a Superman cape and almost lead us to a victory. 2005 Texas, 3 scores up at halftime, didn't hold on to the lead. 2007 Texas, same thing, 3 scores up, didn't hang on the lead. 2013 Bedlam, we were just a much better ball club than that particular team. 2017 Bedlam, that was a hard one to watch with Baker Mayfield and Mason Rudolph trying to throw for 1,000 yards between the two. 2021 Big 12 title game, gut-wrenching, devastating. The first half of 2023 TCU, or second half, that was devastating. Plus, then you got to add in 2023 or 2022 K-State, 2022 KU, 2023 South Alabama. Those were more brutal than devastating. This Utah game was both. It was brutal and it was devastating. One of the keys to the game when we went live Saturday was the ugly, nasty, dirty guys in the trenches. Those were the dudes that were going to help us get that victory. But the offensive line did not do that. The offensive line has done nothing this year other than pass protect. And even in this game, their pass protection wasn't as good as it's been thus far throughout the course of the year. But when it comes to the running lanes, there are none. And then when there are some, Ollie Gordon is not being patient. The vision and patience that he was able to show last year, he's not doing this year. He's running into the backs of his O-lineman, or he's trying to run over the guy in the A-gap, even if there's holes to the outside, even if there's the ability seemingly to bounce it and make something out of nothing. Those are the things he was able to do last year that he's not doing this year. As it pertains to Brian Nardo, guys, if your defense is playing a top 15 team in the country or any team in the country, and they only give up 2 touchdowns, that's more than enough to win a ball game. Brian Nardo's defense did more than enough to win this game. Now, of course, you have Trey with an A, Nick with an A, Parker with an A. Obi Ozigbo, you get a B. Kendall Daniels, I think it was a better performance. You get a B. D-line, they actually performed better on film than I thought live in person. So I'll say a good C+ for them is fair. The cornerbacks, after rewatching every play, the entirety of the game, our corners did not do great. Cam had a couple good plays, including that turnover, keeping that guy up, right? But all in all, they got cooked a decent amount. The O-line, it was an F, right? It just was. Quarterback play, both of them, it was an F. Tight end play, not bad, C. Fullback, D+. I wanted to go with an F, but I keep forgetting that Schultz is not the same thing as Brayton Cassidy. Running back, again, F. And that's kind of slightly disingenuous and not fair to Sesi Vailahe. He went in there and he performed admirably at times as well. So maybe not an F at running back, maybe a D-. But Charlie Dickey, either you're a complete F and Tim Rattay is a complete F, or the guy running you is the guy that's getting the complete Fs. There's no way around that Kasey Dunn gets an F for this ball game. And Mike Gundy, right? He's a B level guy right now in the media because he's being pretty open, upfront, transparent, and honest with us. But he's got to get at least a D in offensive management. I mean, how many times is Mike Gundy going to go into a post-game press conference and talk about how he wasn't happy with the game plan? He thought we got out-coached or out-hustled or out-schemed or outplayed. I mean, we've seen some of the behind the scenes of him making comments about how there's 9 coaches in this office, and all 9 of you thought that was a good game plan. That was before this Utah game. We've said it. We've heard Gundy mention it last year. We've heard Gundy mention it already multiple times this season. So clearly Mike Gundy's not happy with the offensive output. He's not happy with the offensive scheme. Although ironically enough, the very first series of the game was really nice. And having the Ollie Gordon at Wildcat packaging with some motions behind it, that was nice. Handing off to Ollie Gordon, or I'm sorry, Brendan Presley, when everybody in the building expects Ollie to keep it if he's at Wildcat, it was nice. And then we abandoned it. So I just didn't want to get on here and talk about how Kasey Dunn needs to be fired and it be just an emotional, vitriolic response. I figured there should be some perspective. I need to watch the game in its entirety again, and I need to try to make some analytical points as to why Kasey Dunn is the biggest deficiency, not only on this roster, in the staff, seemingly in the building because the ineptitude, unfortunately, didn't just start versus Utah. We do have a lot of evidentiary proof of this kind of, unfortunately, being the norm. Kasey Dunn, production is a problem. It all starts at the top. He's the dude at the top. So let's explore the numbers that make it make sense. Speaking of numbers, maybe you didn't get the over on the Cowboys, but maybe you did get it on the Utes. FanDuel is the number one sports book in America for a multitude of reasons. One of the biggest being is just the trust factor, the ability for you to know that whenever you get logged on, you are going to have the capabilities to maximize, and not just football, but NFL football, college football, NHL, NBA, MLB. They have you covered. They want you to start this season with a big return on FanDuel. When you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That is with FanDuel.com. This is going to be a wild one between the Cowboys and K-State. Make sure that you go get with FanDuel today to see where you could potentially make some capitalization moments for yourself as the Cowboys take on the Purple Power Cats of K-State. Before we get to the Purple Power Cats and, kind of building everything up, one of the benefits to being one of the later shows, I guess you could say, whenever you look at some of the YouTube shows or podcasts or some of the conversations that have been being had about this game and Oklahoma State in particular, there seems to be a lot of people acknowledging the fact that this is a deficiency that Kasey Dunn has. But everybody seems to also be circling back around to but I'm not saying he should be fired. Yeah, but why not? Like, why are we so afraid to just say the uncomfortable truth, I guess? And when you look at Kasey Dunn, let's say if you compare Kasey Dunn, okay, to Mike Yurcich. Well, you can't really do that because Mike Yurcich had a really good offense. So how about you take the worst 3 years out of Mike Yurcich's 2013 through 2018 run? So if you took the 3 worst years from Mike Yurcich in the last 3 years, not COVID included, with Kasey Dunn, you're talking about with Kasey Dunn's offenses, 30.4 points per game, 75.3 plays per game, 20.5 first downs earned, 39.6% on third and fourth down conversion rates, 227.3 on third and fourth down attempts, 27.7 punts, 72.7 punts and 28 field goals attempted. Those are the numbers for Kasey Dunn. And when you look at the worst years for Mike Yurcich, we were almost 5 points a game higher. We played 2.5 snaps less per game. We had less capabilities to get first downs that we were still able to convert those at first down clips, 21.2%. His 41.2% on third down and fourth down conversions were obviously significantly better than the 39.6% for Dunn. The attempts were 207 to 227.3. His punts were 63.3, and field goals were 25.3. So Mike Yurcich put up more points, had more production, more first downs, better conversion rates with less plays than Kasey Dunn. That should help put it into some perspective. And last time I checked, Mike Yurcich isn't really doing a whole lot right now. He got fired for Penn State. I thought he'd be an analyst, but I couldn't find a lot of information on them out there. So if somebody says, if you got rid of Kasey Dunn, who'd you bring in? I'm not saying I'd bring in Mike Yurcich, but there's evidentiary proof that would be instantaneously better. There's evidentiary proof that Sean Gleason was significantly better than any 1 year under Kasey Dunn. Guys, if you go back since 2013, right, that offense was ranked number 14 in America. That was with Jeremy Smith and Des Rowland at running back, Wes Lunt and JW playing quarterback, and Josh Stewart as our top wide receiver. I think we can all agree the talent level now compared to those dudes is not the same. 2014, we were 77th in America. That was the year that Mike Gundy may have been a little bit on a hot seat, and Mason Rudolph came in at the very end to save us. So, of course, some are naturally asking, if Mason could save us in 2014, why couldn't Zane save us now? We'll cover that in segment 3. 2015, we had the number 14 ranked team offensively in America. 2016, 17th. 2017, the 4th ranked offense in the country. 2018, 13th ranked offense in America. Then Sean Gleason gets the job. 2019, he produces the 21st ranked offensive production numbers in America. 2020, now we enter Kasey Dunn, 51st in the country, but we can exclude COVID if we need to. 2021, we're 46th in the country. That was with one of the top 3 best defenses in America and one of the top 2 best defenses in Oklahoma State history. Plus, we had Spencer Sanders, Jalen Warren, Tylan Wallace, Dylan Stoner. We had a lot of weapons to offensively bail us out of situations, but we still ended up almost 50th in America. 2022, 50th in America. 2023, 54th in America. Right now, 64th in America. Thankfully, we got K-State coming up, and they're 73rd in America. But out of 67 Power 4 teams, we are 65th in offensive success rates. I say all that to say, ladies and gentlemen, Kasey Dunn is tied with the offensive coordinator from Florida, Rob Sale, as the 20th highest paid coordinator in America. He's a top 20 paid guy that is producing a bottom 60, 50 ranked offense. And again, if you factor in some of the lower level schools, those numbers could even get more problematic. How many times are we all going to be okay with Mike Gundy discussing how our plan was bad and we got out coached and it doesn't make sense. Now for Brian Nardo, yeah, this was the first time that he's put together 4 quarters of phenomenal football. Maybe not the first time. Obviously, last year, K-State stands out, and Bedlam last year stands out. So he's had good games. Let's say this is easily Brian Nardo's top 4 best games he's ever put together. And his defense was on the field for 42 minutes. And 38 of those, 37 of those 42 minutes were successful, where we were winning. So I know they had some chunk yards, and I know that their running back played very well. They had a receiver that went kind of crazy. But nobody can contain any offense whenever their defense is on the field for that amount of time. I mean, the rotation was necessary for this game, but I would also argue that maybe the rotation of madness, the hockey-style stuff that we were doing defensively, it's great in theory. If you can keep everybody fresh and everybody rocking and rolling at the quarterback all day, every day, that's great. But sometimes it takes players time to get in rhythm. And maybe we're missing some of that because there is a lack of production on the defensive line as well. Linebackers and safeties both played very, very well. The game plan was good. The understanding of where Brent Keithy was going to be for most of the game was pretty good. Dorian Singer kind of picked on our corners a little bit, but that's an area that we need to improve on. We have a lot of improvement that we need to do. Winning a Big 12 title, still possible, looks unlikely. Going to the CFP, it's possible, looks unlikely. No matter what the deficiencies are in the Big 12, that offense, the way it sits right now, is not good enough. The offensive line has been so underwhelming. They've been great in pass pro, but even this game, they were not as good, which caused the quarterbacks to, kind of get antsy and have their own problems. This whole game was problematic. And you guys know it's not easy or not hard to invoke emotions out of me. But as emotional as I am, this is just logical. Kasey Dunn has been a problem for a long time. Have I done videos about Kasey Dunn needing to be fired before? Yes, I have. But we're keeping him around. I don't know why. Again, uncomfortable truths. Is it that he's really that good? Well, obviously not. There's no statistical production that equals Kasey Dunn's been good since he's been given the job. Is it the fact that, him and Gundy go way back and they're just buddies for life? Maybe. I don't know. Could it be that he has something on Gundy? I think that would be wild, but I don't know. Doubtful, right? So, I mean, what is it? What is the reluctancy to call a spade from Mike Gundy as it pertains to Kasey Dunn? Is it likely that there's something else at play here? Uncomfortable truth time. Could Kasey Dunn be part of some underlying issue as it pertains to certain things that you have to do in hiring instead of just hiring the best coordinators physically available? There's something else at play here because Mike Gundy is an offensive mind. There's no way he can look at this offensive production and not consider it to be offensive to the 60,000 people that came to the game. I am disappointed in the 40,000 people that left in the fourth quarter. So, I mean, that was almost an epic comeback. But even, let's call a spade. Defensively, they ran a lot of cover one. They were obviously going to play a heavy box. And then on the outside, they were maintaining leverage to keep everything inside. So they basically put us where they wanted our wide receivers to be based on the routes that we typically run. They did a remarkable job. They did good. Hats off to Utah. But this goes so many more layers about Kasey Dunn that you don't have to have a knee-jerk reaction to say he needs to go. I would say that it's a knee-jerk reaction for anybody to claim that they think he's a good coach, that they think he's a good coordinator, that he can scheme up things. I understand some people don't want to have certain accesses revoked and whatever, but there's statistical evidentiary proof that Kasey Dunn is one of the worst offensive coordinators in the Big 12 year after year after year after year. Tis what it is, but it's okay. We have an opportunity against Kansas State. Make sure you get your tickets with Kansas State and get them today. Game Time Tickets is the best in the land because not only do you get great deals at the start of the event, up to the event, but even up to an hour after the event, the great deals keep on coming. Game Time Tickets is going to allow you to alleviate a lot of stress whenever you're thinking about the travel, the hotel, the expenses, the fees, and then also tickets. With Game Time Picks, it'll make it easier for you to get the best tickets available and easiest. The Game Time Picks filters out all of the craziness so you get incredible deals on great seats and you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of crud. Customize your spot and your ability to get the best tickets in the game with Game Time. The seat views are panoramic, so you know exactly what you're getting in the app before you purchase. The lowest price guarantee means that Game Time will credit you back 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of you buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. But again, create that account, redeem that code, LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What is it? You all know what it is. It is Game Time. It was game time for Alan Bowman until it wasn't. And what seems to be brought up more often than not is, why did Alan Bowman get pulled to begin with? For that crowd, I would just implore you to kind of go back and watch the game. He did have a couple nice passes, but by and large, it was pretty abysmal. And He was staring down his receivers. There was only literally a few times that he looked off the safety and went to the opposite side of the field. And even then, he was thrown to spots as opposed to guys. Now, some of that is predicated upon the play calling, the route trees. But at the same point in time, if you're a defensive back and you are playing cover one, your job is to keep everything underneath you and to read the quarterback's eyes. So the more difficult the quarterback's eye discipline is, the more difficult it is for the safety. This is a knock on Bowman and Garret Rangel. Both of them telegraph quite a bit, AKA they decide where they're going to throw before the snap. They obviously are looking at something from the defensive side of the ball that gives them a particular read, but nonetheless, it makes it a lot easier if they already know what the route trees are going to be and your quarterback staring at the wide receiver from the minute he takes the snap. Those are just some of the little things that accentuate some of the ineptitude by even maybe somebody like a Tim Rattay. I know the quarterback dudes love Tim Rattay. He's a phenomenal quarterback recruiter, a quarterback whisperer, but the development hasn't been there. The development hasn't been there for the offensive line. We have regressed significantly since last year on the offensive line. So does that mean Charlie Dickey all of a sudden has become terrible? Does Tim Rattay just not have any ability whatsoever to develop any quarterback ever? Or is it a deeper underlying issue? Is it a Kasey Dunn level issue? And if it is, why? Why are we continuing to have these problems? But again, Alan Bowman got pulled because he was producing at 35%. That's why. And when he was missing that first couple drives, he was missing passes by 4, 5, 6 yards. A couple times with phenomenal pockets where the offensive line didn't let anybody move at all, and he was still throwing it wide. Happy feet, right? It wasn't Crawdaddy Bowman. It was Happy Feet. I don't know how many nicknames this poor individual is going to accrue throughout his time at Oklahoma State, but his performance is what led to Garret Rangel coming in. Now, if you want to have the argument that Garret Rangel played too long, okay, maybe, because Garrett knows, I'm sure, he played pretty bad. Alan Bowman played pretty bad. But again, is that on them? Is it on Tim Rattay? Is it on Charlie Dickey? Is it on Kasey Dunn? Who's it on? We're not getting development from our O-linemen. We're not getting development from our quarterbacks. So either they're really bad at their jobs or their boss is really bad at making the distinguishment on who gets to make decisions and what level of those decision-making processes equal to the team. And the last thing that everyone naturally is bringing up is, well, why not Zane? We've seen Garrett before. Because it's because of the faith and the trust that his teammates and coaches have in him. Several people in that building firmly believe that he's the number 2. Nobody in that building is under any disillusionment about the ceiling of Zane Flores being significantly different than a lot of quarterbacks we've had for a long time. But right now, the understanding of the offense, how to orchestrate things and how to make sure that you're going to get in and out of the right plays and have the least amount of mistakes while also having the trust of your locker room and your offensive line, that's important. Then whenever you look at the fact that, he played terrible in this game and maybe he hasn't done enough over time, but I'd also ask everybody to remember that Garrett's done everything that has been asked of him. We needed him to go from 182 pounds to 210, 212 pounds. He did that. We needed him to go from a 4.8 40 to a 4.95 40, 4.59 40. He did that. We needed him to learn not only the offense that was originally being ran with Spencer Sanders, but we also needed him to learn the offense with the option route concepts that Alan Bowman was able to help incorporate. He was able to do that. And then against Tulsa, he doesn't get a lot of play, but when he does get play, a lot of his success was off of his running capabilities. Yet he didn't run at all when he was in the game against Utah. And there's a possibility that maybe we were calling a couple plays that he's not familiar with. I do know that last delay of game before he got pulled out, that was a miscommunication between him and BP. BP was supposed to go in motion. Garrett was trying to get him in motion, but BP was pointing out what Garrett should have caught, which is on Garrett, that the DB was like 15 yards back, right? So BP was like, I don't need to go in motion, bro. Look how far away he is. Just throw me a stop route. And by the time Garrett realized why BP was shaking him off on going in motion, it was too late. So that style of thing leads me to believe that the moment was big. And obviously it was big for Bowman. It was big for Rangel. It was too big for Ollie. It was too big for the OLine. It doesn't add up, ladies and gentlemen. There's no way around the fact that since the beginning of Kasey Dunn being the offensive coordinator, we have gone from, top 13, top 15, top 17, top 10, top 5 every single year, top 21 to 57, 50, 54, 64. Let me know down in the comment section if you think I am missing something. Again, Garrett has the trust of the locker room and the offensive line. That matters. Zane Flores has the trust athletically of everybody in Stillwater, America, and beyond. I, too, think that at some point in time, you do have to up the ante a little bit. The difference between 2014, whenever Mason Rudolph did come in and save the season, we were a sub 500 ball club or a barely 500 ball club at that point in time. So making a bowl game was it. Like, that was what we had to try to get to. If we lose 3 in a row, I bet Zane does take the keys. But there's still a lot to salvage in this season. Kansas State looked more rough than we did. We just have to take care of business and make sure that we utilize this game the right way. You can have a game like this beat you down, or you can have a game like this motivate you. We saw what happened after South Alabama and Iowa State last season. And part of it was just Mike Gundy's being more involved in special teams and things of that nature. Well, you've got Sean Snyder now. So maybe, perhaps, if you have to throw on a headset, I think most of Cowboy country would be okay with you calling plays. We'd be happy with you calling plays. We'd be happy with Sean Gleason or Mike Yursich calling plays. We might be happy with Trayson Wallace and J.W. Walsh calling plays. We might be happy if you took the $1 million you're paying Kasey Dunn and the almost $500,000 you're paying Charlie Dickey and $500,000 you're paying Tim Rattay or Jason McIndoe. That's a few $1 million. So if you cut out the craziness, maybe you spend that few million on a top-tier offense coordinator. The top-tier OCs aren't even getting through $1 million. So if you were to throw 2.5 at a Zach Robinson or a Todd Monken, that's enough money to at least get everybody's attention. And we're wasting that amount of money right now. And before I get off here, one thing I will close in saying with, there is going to be some reluctancy, in my opinion, as there should be, in regards to donations of NIL if this is the product. It's hard to rally everybody around Ollie Gordon and this OLine and 20 returning starters, and we need to make it happen. And then we make it all happen, all of it. The donors made all of it happen. The fan base made all of it happen. We got to bring 20 dudes back from a 10-win ball club. And we're playing like a bunch of entitled redshirt freshmen up front, if we're being frank. Without Trey Rucker and Nick Martin, Brennan Presley, DeJon Stribling, what does this football team look like? There's only one team in the Big 12 below us in success rates offensively, and that's Houston. That's where we are. We're down there with Houston and UCLA as the worst offenses in America. I don't know how anyone can continue to ride the Kasey Dunn train. So I don't know why everyone is still saying that they think he's great at this and he's great at this and he can be great at this. I don't see it. The numbers don't say it. He, at one point in time, was a wide receiver guru, and he very well still may be. But you can teach the guys to run the best routes in the world. But if you're only running the same 9-10 routes every single game, I don't know. Again, if you look at the numbers, they load the box a lot. But when they did drop back, it was by design. And then when we did make a run of it in the fourth quarter in the last 6 minutes, they went from cover 1 to a lot of cover 2 and cover 3 cloud. Not prevent, but they were giving a lot more room. So if you look on film, that last 6 minutes, they're back 7, so they'd rush 4. They dropped 7. The closest of the dropped 7 to the line of scrimmage was 8 yards off the ball, the furthest being 16 yards back. So they were playing a 4-man front with an 8 to 16-yard gap. Basically, they were giving up all the underneath. And it did help some of the numbers production-wise, but Alan Bowman got pulled because he played that bad. Garret Rangel got pulled because he played that bad. You can't go from 35% to under 30%. You just can't do it. Was he set up for success? No. Neither was Alan Bowman, and neither is Ollie Gordon. I could trying to be calm, okay? Trying not to rant. It's hard for me. It is. This was hard to watch. And that heat was brutal. Another massive shout out to Utah. I legitimately thought that by the end of the first quarter, that there's no way Utah is going to be used to this. I've been to, coached in, watched, participated, played in hundreds of games in my life. That's one of the benefits to getting up there in age. I honestly don't recall playing in, coaching in, participating, watching, ever being in a game that hot. So I didn't think Utah was going to be able to do that for 4 quarters. But they did. And they were more violent than we were for all 4 quarters of it. So I was wrong about Utah. I was wrong about their transition. I was wrong about them not being tough enough. I was wrong about our dudes being uglier, dirtier, nastier, and meaner for this game. I don't know. We were wrong about a lot. Anywho, that's all we're going to have for this one right here. As always, you know I love you. God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Hit the like, share, comment, subscribe. I'm podcasting people out there. You're the bricks, the bread, the butter, the fountain, the fondue, all of it. Hit the stars. Leave a review. Do what you do. Later, my taters.